For the better part of a century, if you talked about cars, you were talking about two companies, Ford and General Motors. These American giants were, for all intents and purposes, untouchable. They wrote the rules. But then, from halfway across the world, a Japanese car maker that was once knocking on death's door started a quiet revolution, one that would completely upend the industry and leave the titans of Detroit scrambling.
So the big question is, how did they pull it off? Seriously, how does a company on the brink of collapse completely rewrite the playbook and beat the biggest players at their own game? Well, the answer isn't some single, flashy invention. It's something much deeper, a totally different way of looking at how things get made.
You see, to really get why Toyota won, we first have to understand why the American giants were starting to lose. It's a classic story, really. Their greatest strength had secretly become their biggest, most fatal flaw. I mean, let's give them their due. Back in 1908, Ford's Model T and the assembly line literally changed the world. Cars were suddenly for everyone. Then GM came along and perfected the model, giving people variety and choice. For decades, they ruled the world. But by the 1970s, that amazing system of mass production, well, it was starting to show some serious rust.
And they'd walked right into what we now call the Ford production trap. The whole philosophy was just make as much as possible, as fast as possible. But that led to costs that were just spiraling out of control. Their huge factories were like giant lumbering dinosaurs, totally inflexible. And all of that overproduction, it meant mountains of waste and warehouses packed to the ceiling with parts and cars that nobody had even ordered yet. Just sitting there, costing a fortune.
So when you boil it all down, the entire war comes down to this slide right here. Two completely opposite ways of thinking. On one side, you've got Ford's way, just in case. Basically, hoard everything you can, just in case you might need it. Then you have Toyota, who looked at that model and did a complete 180 with their revolutionary idea, just in time.
And this, right here, is where everything changes. Remember, Toyota was on the ropes in the 1950s. They were nearly bankrupt. It was a true innovate or die moment. And out of that crisis, they built their masterpiece, the Toyota production system, with just-in-time as its beating heart.
So what in the world is just-in-time, or JIT? It's pretty simple, actually. It's a full-on war on waste. You don't build a part until the very second it's needed down the line, and you don't build a car until a customer has actually ordered it. It's the ultimate lean system. But man, is it a tightrope walk. Everything has to be perfectly coordinated, because there's no safety net of extra parts if something goes wrong.
The whole process is just beautiful. It all starts with you, the customer, placing an order. That single action sends a signal, what Toyota called a Kanban, that just ripples backwards through the whole supply chain. Instantly, suppliers send only the exact parts needed for your specific car, and they arrive right as they're about to be installed. The result? A car built to order with practically zero waste.
And the payoff for this system was absolutely mind-blowing. By not having giant warehouses full of stuff, Toyota saved a fortune. With fewer parts on the line at any given time, it was way easier to spot a defect and fix it immediately, so quality went through the roof. And because the system was so nimble, they could switch from making a sedan to a truck almost overnight. It was a total game changer.
Now, if you think this is all just ancient history, take a look at the 2021 global chip shortage. It absolutely crippled the car industry. But who weathered the storm the best? Toyota. Their production was way higher than Ford's or GM's. Their just-in-time philosophy had forced them to build incredibly strong, resilient relationships with their suppliers, so when the crisis hit, they were ready. The old giants, they were caught completely flat-footed.
But here's the thing. Just-in-time was the tactic, the how they did it. But it wasn't their true secret weapon. The real magic, the one thing the American car makers could just never seem to copy, wasn't a process at all. It was their culture.
And that culture is called Kaizen. It's a Japanese term that means continuous improvement. Now, this wasn't some cheesy motivational poster or a weekend workshop. This was the company's operating system. It meant that every single employee, from the CEO in the boardroom to the worker on the assembly line, had a shared duty to make things just a little bit better every single day.
And this is so important. At a place like Ford, workers were often seen as just cogs in a giant, impersonal machine. But at Toyota, they were seen as the most powerful tool they had. The person actually doing the job was treated as the world's leading expert on how to improve that job. That was a radical, fundamental shift in thinking.
Think about this for a second. Any worker on a Toyota line could pull a cord and stop the entire factory if they saw a problem or had an idea.
Can you imagine? At Ford, that would have been unthinkable. But at Toyota, stopping the line wasn't a problem, it was an opportunity to get better. Improvement didn't come from the top down, it bubbles up from the factory floor.
So, after this incredible David and Goliath story, what can we actually take away from it? What are the big lessons from this revolution that we can still use today?
It really boils down to 3 powerful ideas. 1. Become obsessed with finding and eliminating waste. Wasted time, wasted materials, wasted effort, all of it. 2. Trust your people. Empower your team to be the engine of improvement. And 3. Build for change. Don't create rigid systems that will shatter under pressure. Build flexible processes that can bend and adapt.
You know, these principles didn't just transform an industry. They're just as relevant today for any business, any team, or even for our own personal productivity. And that leads to a final question for you. Where in your own work, or maybe even in your life, are you stuck in a just-in-case mindset? What's one area you could transform by applying a little just-in-time thinking? Drop your ideas in the comments. We'd love to hear them.
For the better part of a century, if you talked about